Good evening, dear friends. Thank you for being with us tonight on the 12th edition of SHEleader digital series of dialogues. Tonight, my special guest is Irina Obushtarova. She's co-founder and CEO of the Recursive. What is Recursive? This is an independent community-born online media dedicated to the emerging tech and startup ecosystem in Southeast Europe. I'm very happy to have you on the other side of the screen, Irina. Let me maybe introduce a little bit the topic, why we are talking about media, which not necessarily is connected to the tech usual areas of activities. It is not anymore like this. Of course, we love to buy printed papers and magazines, but this seems to be a sentiment from the past for many of us, and especially for the young generation. This looks today as a souvenir. We see a rapid growth of the digital media, of blogs, of open media, and of multi-channel media projects. And the Recursive is one of the examples. On top of this, they are community-born online media and pretty much community-supported. It is loved by the startup community in Bulgaria, and now also in the region. So we'll talk a little bit about this with Irina. I can share my opinion, but I'll save my words because I want to hear first from Irina, and then may make a reflection. And before starting the dialogue with her, to give a little bit of a background, Irina is a journalist. She came back in Bulgaria after a career in Austria in modern media, and she will tell us a little bit about her background for what is not necessarily widely known here in our region. But what I like about her is that she came after more than 10 years studying and working internationally, and started an innovative media project. On top of this, it had a very, very clear focus to support the emerging tech and startup ecosystem in Bulgaria. And she packaged it, she designed it in a way that was not known by that time in our practice. And when she packaged it, stabilized it, she gave it to an international team and started the Recursive, which carried the legacy and the experience from her previous media, but is even more advanced. And Irina, I'm really happy to have you tonight. Maybe you can continue what I have started before talking about digital media and new market. Tell us a little bit more what motivated you to make those brave steps to start one media, something totally unknown for the market, media market, and quite risky, honestly, as a business. Now starting a new media project. What drives you to go this way?
First of all, Sasha, thank you for the invitation. It's a real pleasure for me also to be here with you today. I'm in a way also honored because I do not consider myself, kind of an expert when it comes to, observing all the digital trends in media. But if I have to go to your first question, what motivated me to make these brave steps, I would say that these steps never really seemed to me that brave. Starting the project back then, a couple of years ago, together with also with Alexandra, it seemed to me that this is something which is necessary for the ecosystem. If we observe innovation ecosystems all over the world, the more mature ones, they usually have a very strong media voice. Someone who promotes the success stories which are within the ecosystem, both to the stakeholders in the ecosystem, but also to the stakeholders which are international. This is something that at some point I saw. And since in Austria I studied media and I was part of newsrooms, it was in a way a logical step for me to contribute and give back to the society that I grew up and raised me in this way. I remember at some point I decided to come back, but I wasn't sure what am I going to do. I knew only that I've gained some experience over the years and I wanted to bring it back, to give it back. I was, after 10 or 11 years in Austria, at some point, I have to say that I was proud to be different. I was proud to have Bulgarian roots. And something in me told me that I have to contribute to the development of the society. Maybe also something that not many of you know, I had an unsuccessful attempt to make my first startup back then in Austria. It didn't work out. And it was a project, again, a platform that was meant to give orientation to expats who are moving to Austria. And in the course of my work, I was observing the migration trends in the European Union. And it was very sad for me to see that the regions which were devastated from the brain drain in Europe were mostly Bulgaria and Romania. And at some point I thought, I actually should be doing something different. I should be working in the opposite direction. I should actually bring more people back to Bulgaria and Romania. And I think that was the point where I had to change directions and think of something different and redefine myself.
And you did it. We saw the really. I'm working, as you know, and many eventually people that follow, working very close to the ecosystem, and you really made a difference. You together with your team, and but maybe to speak a little bit on what's going on the media market and how digital transformation affected the media market, so that we understand what are the tips and tricks to be a successful journalist these days.
So I think my first reaction to the question of digital transformation in media would be more like, may we live in interesting times? Both are very broad terms. So digital transformation becomes more and more fuzzy over time, and media is in the same way. So I think what we can definitely say is that media underwent a massive transformation over the past probably 20 years. Already with the emergence of the internet, this changed the way we consume information, we consume content, even entertainment. Before that, media, or let's talk more concretely about news media, were the gatekeepers and the instances that were obtaining and disseminating information to society in general. Now the consumers are, in a way, back in power, and they determine what kind of information they want, where they want it, at what point they want it, which are the habits that they're going to have when they consume information and entertainment. So the expectation is that they're going to have access at any point in time, anywhere they want, and in the way that they actually want to have it served. And since then, I think media is, trying to keep up with the change in behavior of consumers. But if I have to continue on the topic, I would like to do something a bit more of divide and conquer. So let's distinguish between the digital transformation of journalism in the sense that journalism as a profession and social function, and digital transformation of media companies. Because for me, these are two different things. So when it comes to journalism, the profession and its function in the society changed. Some things remain the same. When it comes to the changes, I would say that the way that we now as journalists produce content has a digital logic. So before I start writing an article, I already have to think of how am I going to distribute it through the digital channels, because it needs to be understandable for machines. The infrastructure currently is held pretty much by Google and by social media. So if I may create a wonderful piece of content, if I don't know how am I going to distribute it, it is going to fail. So I have to think about it already when I'm writing the article or producing a video content and so on and so forth. There are also things that remain the same in journalism. So when it comes to quality, the way that journalists obtain information, select information, curate information, can also present it in a relevant way. This remains the same. So storytelling remains the same. And I think in these times where the online space is getting more and more crowded and noisier, I could comfortably say that I'm an optimist that this vital function of journalism will increase in importance. We'll need more and more gatekeepers who will give us news and information in a way that we can make sense of the world. Because we saw it even now during the pandemic. It was very difficult, to filter and to make sense of what am I supposed to do now? Yeah, how am I going to survive this? People were really scared. We also, of course, we see deliberate attempts for disinformation, which are now. But this is also a very huge topic. So fake news is leading to another problem that we see in journalism, and this is the question of trust. I think news media, governments, and social media are the most distrusted brands and companies or organizations in the world at this point.
Thank you very much for giving this angle, because this is in a way what we see as a disruption in every dimension of the business and society. And you see that there is the democratization of the access to the information, and consumer being empowered today through social media to set the agenda is affecting the supply chains, it's affecting the way how the new economic models are organized, but we can discuss this in a different environment. But do you think that the future of media is online media? As a professional, as a journalist, do you think that printed papers are gone already? What would be your prediction? Because let me tell you why I'm asking. Why I'm asking you. I'm from the generation where the future is, the forecasts were that after email is massively used, we'll stop meeting each other, and also when internet happened, that people never ever will go to a shop or whatever. And this didn't happen. There are different mechanisms, not necessarily only for people being conservative, that keep certain balance. So I'm interested to see, knowing that many traditional media have difficulties to survive today. What is your opinion about this? What is the future of media if you have a crystal ball or, of course, professional view on this?
I think, maybe we need to distinguish between news and long form pieces or long form content. So when it comes to news, I definitely believe that not only the future, but the present is online. It is very fast, and to keep up with what is happening in the world, you cannot have the processes that we had in analog, the printing and then distributing and then having a physical product. So this is the one thing. I think the second thing that is also happening is with this, let's call it hyper normalization of, online content. I think we're being overloaded at some point, and our brains, at least mine, and I'm from the millennial generation, maybe the future ones are better, but I definitely feel overloaded at some point from the screens that are around me. So I think there is a parallel trend which is going offline. So when it comes to books and maybe even more artsy types of products, we will still consume physical products, but it won't be around news. It will be, as you mentioned in the beginning, more like a souvenir, something which is more of an experience also for your senses, because it has a smell, it has a certain haptic, it gives you pleasure, to touch the paper. We still have this, and we will continue to have this, and I think we will try to go offline. But news is definitely online. The question for me here is not if it is online. The question here for me is what are the channels that we're going to use? So it is not just only social media and Google. I think in the future, we will move more and more to personalized experience when it comes to, how do we consume news? We will go probably even further in things like augmented reality and virtual reality, and we will consume, news probably on our wearables and, all the lenses that are coming at us. So Internet of Things, definitely a topic, but online and digital. I mean, the source of most of the information that we have is already digital. We generate it digitally.
I think that technologies for these different ways of consuming information exists already. You have podcasts, you're listening while you're running, you have also ability to follow video, which is one step before the VR, if you want, because it is just a different type of introducing information. And you have also already personalized content that follows your preferences. I think we are already there, even if we don't realize we are there. But that's something that would require most probably for the general public to go a little bit deeper into the information, let's say, essence, ways to manage it, which would take a bit of a time. But let's maybe go a little bit into what means consumer-driven media, because I like this way. I know I can imagine what you mean, but I was more thinking before about the journalist cooperatives, for investigative journalism that creates these collaborative platforms, environment, and so on, and didn't conceptualize that you have a grassroots support and even, let's say, driving content agenda for a media like the Recursive. Can you share a little bit what your definition about this?
So actually, the word that we're using for the recursive is community born, and it is a funny word. I think it's something that we basically invented. I'm not even sure that the word exists in the dictionary somewhere. But what we at some point realized is that the way that we integrate ourselves in the ecosystem is by us being part of this community. One example that I'm going to give: in the beginning, we were changing the co-working spaces every 3 months. So in the beginning, we will be in one co-working space, meeting the people, sorting the stories, also giving them our know-how about storytelling and how to do PR and how to communicate with journalists. This is the one thing, and every 3 months we will change so that we get to know everyone and their businesses personally. I tried to do something similar, by the way, last week, this time on a road trip going to Albania, Kosovo, and Macedonia. And it was super interesting, to meet the people there in ecosystems which are maybe a bit less mature than the Bulgarian at this point, and who look up to what we're doing here. That was actually interesting to see. Also, I would say that we're trying to keep our processes, cost structures, the way that we do things very agile, and this is very similar to what one can observe in a startup. So in this sense, I'm not, just a managing director of a company. I am a co-founder because I share similar values. I try to act in a similar way. So our business understanding and maybe even the challenges sometimes are very similar to those of startup founders. And I also identify, and I would say that we're community born in a different way, that we will be growing with the growth of the ecosystem. The more the ecosystem matures, the more we will also grow as a business and as a team and as a brand. We started smaller, a couple of years ago, and now I think we created a certain type of brand, and we are really managing, to give visibility to this ecosystem here locally, but only also because the ecosystem is maturing.
Well, yes, I think that you are very, very important stakeholder of the Bulgarian ecosystem, and of course you grow with the ecosystem maturity, but you also grow geographically. As you've mentioned, you've been on an road trip through part of the region that you are covering, and it will be interesting for me, but I'm sure also for the audience, to share a little bit more about your impressions, because startups are the freshers. They are people with the ideas. Of course, the business knowledge and ability to grow business in a sustainable way is different and very important stage, but I have two questions to leave you maybe to share a bit more. One is about the needs of the startup communities in different countries, what is similar, what is different, and also to which extent you think that we can play this effectively, this cross-border community game that is on top of the slides where we, when we introduce our goals, being a little bit before our friends from the region, but in the same time, everybody wants to have own path identity, and it is time for bridges. It is time for collaboration, for synergies. So, to which extent your media, for example, can play this role to be the neutral bridge, in addition to what, of course, is done by the entrepreneurial collaborative actions. Mm-hmm.
So I would start with the needs that were kind of obvious, or those who are in a way identified for the short periods of time that I was there. And I would say that for me, the travel was more like a time travel. So the challenges that we had in, I don't know, in Bulgaria, in Sofia, let's say 5 years ago, are pretty much, you know, those who the founders in the local ecosystems in Albania and Kosovo and Macedonia are facing at this time. So there is, of course, a lack of talent. There is, of course, you know, the maybe not enough the mindset of, hey, if someone can do it in Germany, then I can do it here too. I also see the lack of confidence that I would say also sometimes founders here have, because, you know, they believe that nothing is really going to improve here. And, you know, I'm just coming from a small country. I cannot compete with global players, which is not true. I mean, the digital economy is totally changing that. Of course, there are problems which are coming from the legal framework at this point. They're not part of the digital single market, which is in the EU. There is a lack of capital, definitely. Venture capital is still a new concept, and it's not even, from what I hear in some of the countries, it's even a challenge, you know, to make investments as a VC in a company from the legal point of view. What else? What else? Alignment within the ecosystem, so that there is like a real community where know-how can be exchanged. The topic of female founders is maybe even harsher than here. And from what I hear, it's in a way worsening at this point. So when it comes to synergies, I totally believe that we in Bulgaria and maybe also even Romania and Greece, which are at this point the more mature ecosystems, because we started earlier, because we got the support also from the EIF and you know, all those institutions in the beginning. I think we can give back to the smaller ecosystems which are around us. They would need working models that we have already implemented. They would need success stories that they can relate to. So I think for someone who is in Kosovo and reading about a successful founder in Miami, yes, of course, it is nice and it is an inspiration, but it's not just the same as, you know, someone who is coming from Southeastern Europe. So I hope that in a way, you know, media is also an intermediary, and we can bridge the founders from Albania to the founders in Bulgaria, and they can at some point exchange. I actually invited all of them to come here and just to say hi and let me know if I can make them an intro. I think we definitely need more of that.
Actually, even from the experience of Bulgarian Center of Women in Technologies, I can confirm your words, because the year before pandemic, we've been helping 40 young women, they've been students, for in their entrepreneurial path for maybe a year, and we had a whole week here in Bulgaria, and those are same smart, creative young people, but just the infrastructure there to grow businesses afterwards is a little bit more difficult. And we continue mentoring them, but for a really established company, having access to capital, that's something that needs to be developed, and hopefully we can give them a hand in addition to what you're doing, giving visibility to good projects. Maybe we can jointly think about what else can be done in importance to support the regional growth.
I think sometimes it will be even enough, to let them speak to like-minded people. So, for instance, I met this girl. She let me think, in Kosovo. She was working in fashion tech. She graduated in UK actually, and fashion tech in Kosovo. This is really, really difficult, especially if you want to, make a sustainable business model out of it. But she really enjoyed what she was doing, and at the same time, she doesn't really have a community, or I don't know, people that she can speak about topics. So she was looking for them outside of her country in Berlin, and I believe that even here in Sofia, she might meet. And for her, that was very important, because this is how she gains confidence. This is how she gains inspiration. This is how she's feeling, challenged by the ideas of others. And I think this is happening across industry. Sometimes we need to speak to the people who share the same mindset as we do. And there is also, something different that I saw very in common, and that was this pessimism. We have this too, not believing that something good can come out of this region. Sometimes standing a bit in our own way. So I think we can support each other a bit more in that. Sasha, I'm not sure if maybe you're muted.
Yes, thank you for reminding me, because I've continued to the dialogue.
I was just about, to read your lips.
Yeah. But well, in the same time, of course, Bulgaria and Romania have also a good basis for exchange, because following different path in last 5-7 years, we reached today more or less a same level of maturity, and also some good success stories that exists in both countries. So do you believe that between Bulgaria and Romania is more that can be done? And I see you are publishing on a regular basis also Romanian stories, respectively, they hear about us. I think that we jointly can really develop a common agenda, including for women in digital industry.
Mm-hmm. So first of all, it's not so at Recursive, it's not we and them anymore, because 2 members of our team are already Romanian, and they're based in Bucharest. So I think this is already happening, this kind of exchange between Romania and Bulgaria. Of course, there is still room for that, and I was actually very impressed of how open-minded and how welcoming everyone in Romania was towards us. Even in the beginning, when we were coming as the Bulgarians, just wanted to, to report and tap a bit deeper into their startup ecosystem. But this is happening. I see more and more, events where, they're Bulgarian and Romanian founders and representatives. I see also know-how being exchanged. I'm just going to give you an example. Yesterday, we had another event dedicated to how do you raise your Series A. And when I looked at the names in the audience, it was a total, mixture of Bulgarian, Romanian, Slovenian, Serbian names. So I think these political borders that we have in our minds, they're just in our minds. So in this startup world, they're blurring and melting down. This is my opinion.
That's my impression too, and I'm just discussing this with you because you are doing this hands-on integration on a daily basis, having an international team, and still both Bulgaria and Romania are not so visible on the European stage. Even the projects that are supported, I'm, for example, a member of the investment committee of the European Innovation Council. Rarely, close to none, Bulgarian and Romanian projects are supported. And we speak about already not the Balkan agenda, we are speaking about the European facilitating instruments for those who can support the Europe's competitiveness to grow. So we can do more in that respect, I think. But because we are progressing with the time and the sun is shining behind us, I'm pretty sure that many people choose to be in the park and will follow later on as it happens in days like today, our event. I've just wanted to encourage if someone has a question to send it in the chat or in the as a comment in Facebook, and I'll be happy to cover it with Irina. And because the format SHEleader in a Shell is about women and is about female leader, I want to ask you, I mean, you came in Bulgaria, I don't know, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, something like this.
It was 2018. It's not so long ago, 2018.
Even,
although in my head it seems much longer. Very eventful.
Yes. But yeah, you came driven, you said this, by the mission and motivation to give back what you knew already, and there was a niche in Bulgaria. You didn't waste time, started it, created it, structured it, and then once packaged, you return it back to those partners with whom you started the media, and now you start a new project. So is there a female flavor in what you are doing? And what is your opinion about the women that take the ownership for their ideas, for their projects, for their businesses? Do you see them in your professional environment more challenged, which definitely is the case in the digital world, and you are between the both worlds in a way. So what would be your recipe about being a brave founder, about being someone that really follows the dream, that follows the impulse that is changing even place where lives, because those are not necessarily in the traditional thinking, in the way of those who think traditionally. This is not the way how women act.
Well, the topic of female founders and women who initiate and take ownership of something that they want to leave in the world, the impact that they want to have in the world, is still visible in the numbers. If we look at the data, there are much less women who are starting their own projects, and usually they're in certain fields. By the way, media is probably one of them. I think in our team we have the opposite problem, that we have more women in the team than men, and it's really hard to change that at some point. Is there a female flavor to what I'm doing? Most probably. But I would say that I learned back then, maybe also living as an immigrant, that I will not allow myself to feel in a way less than the others because I am Bulgarian or because I'm a woman. In the way that I act, life showed me that more and more I can actually claim what I want to achieve. And looking back at my younger years, I would say that I was unnecessarily inconfident in what I was doing. So if I have to see myself at 22 or see myself at 27, I was worrying about way too many things, and I was focusing way too much on expectations of others and caring way too much about the opinion of others. And once I learned that I can actually live without it and I can claim my spot here where I believe that I deserve to be, the easier it actually happened. So I don't know if it was really a struggle. I think it was more a struggle with myself, not to stand in my own way. I'm probably also very lucky to grow up in a generation that, men around me are much more accustomed to women being successful, getting in power, even being their bosses and earning more money than them. That I believe wasn't like that probably for the generation before. This is becoming more and more, I think, normal and usual for the younger generation. So when I talk to my cousin and she's like 20, she doesn't have the issue that I had at 20. She's like, so I want to be that. I'm just going to go for it and I'm just going to achieve it. The question of, being a woman is not even popping into her mind. So from what I see, this is changing. And definitely the way that I do things have a female flavor. I'm still trying, to make everyone happy in the team, maybe sometimes too much. I care way too much, a bit more about the opinion of all the, customers and investors and other stakeholders. And sometimes I'm panicking that I'm not doing the right thing, that everything is going to fall apart. And this never really happens. So the more often I do it and the more often the world doesn't fall apart, the more I learn that I will be okay next time as well. I shouldn't be worrying that much. Still, I consider myself lucky because I grew up in a certain environment. I grew up in a certain family. And when I look around, I don't think that, I think there's still way too many women who hadn't had my luck. And in a way, I feel responsible for, I don't know, supporting them, mentoring them, giving them maybe also peace of mind, confidence, telling them that it is all going to be fine, that it's actually normal to worry. And over time, it actually gets better. To claim their spot, yeah. So I'm a true believer that, those who are, and I would say, Sasha, also you, those who are in this situation where we have so much freedom to develop ourselves, to be, to have a successful career, to afford so many things, to have so much actually also free time, to do the things that we believe in, we have a certain responsibility of being an example. The one thing that always bugged me, especially when I was younger, was this is very personal, but I was always a salesperson. So my job was in a way to convince others who have a certain budget that what I'm doing is worth it. That the product that I'm selling is worth it. And this always puts you in a way in a dependent position where sometimes men from older generations will treat you as if, I don't know, would not take you seriously. They don't see you as a business partner. They more see you, as a young Bulgarian, and she's kind of, pretty. And this is something that always bugged me. And I think we as women still today think about it every morning when we pick our clothes. Where am I going to? Who am I meeting? How should I dress so that I can be taken seriously? And this is still a reality. And yeah, I still see it, unfortunately, every day.
There are more than these biases that still exists, and the glass ceiling is something that many women are still putting, and the limitation comes from within, not so much from the outside world. At least in Europe, we are privileged to have much more open environment, and I continue to repeat that Bulgaria is the country that leads in these statistics, because we have most women, 31% actively working in the digital industry compared to 16% in Europe. But still, the attitude is very different. Women to choose to present their idea to the world or to ask for promotion to their management, they need to be 120% ready. And while men are more impulsive in that respect, they would package an idea in a good PowerPoint presentation, and this goes already out. So the both approaches are needed, and I'm not here to contradict them, but really, and that's the mission of this format, by the way, I think that nothing works better than when you see someone similar to you that did it already, and a person that you can send a message in LinkedIn or organize a 30 minutes call. This sometimes is transformational, and I want to encourage all girls to feel free to proactively contact those women and men that you like, because this is something that will help you to achieve what you want to.
So recently, I was listening to a podcast with a neuroscientist who basically explained that the way that we learn the fastest is by connecting with people who have the skills that we want to have. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say I want to be a funnier person. I want to tell more jokes and be wittier in a way. So the easiest hack will be to find people who are like that and spend more time with them. Because whenever our brains connect through communication, somehow we mirror the same, the same, how do you call them, the same brain activity. So if we have a really, meaningful conversation, you and I, Sasha, and someone scans our brains, they would look exactly the same. And this is how you the easiest can develop skills which you admire of others. So maybe sometimes it's less about reading books. It is less about finding the hacks of yourself, but it's actually connecting and talking to people who you admire.
And possibly in person, because when people meet physically, you communicate with more than a voice and more than bidimensional, two-dimensional picture on the window. So hopefully we'll have more time and opportunities to meet physically and to develop our brain and neuro connections. Because our time is going to the end, I just wanted to ask you something that, yeah, let me see. There is a question in the chat, which is with a preference. I'll read it to connect it. Who writes articles in the Recursive? Do you work with students, for example? Do you have students? Do you?
We do. So we actually started already last year training our own trainees. They were both studying at, and they still are at the American University in Bulgaria. I was very impressed by how well they fit to our team and how fast they actually learned what is necessary from them as journalists. The one just graduated and she joined our team full time. And Vicky, she's still studying, but during the summer she will be a full-time member of our team as well. And for me, that was a proof of concept that I wanted to have for a program that I hope we can start from the autumn. It will be, let's call it an academy, a traineeship program, exactly for students who want to dive deep in what we're doing and write the stories about the startup ecosystem that we're writing. And I think this will be a jumpstart for anyone who wants to continue in journalism, but also for all those who want to continue in content marketing and corporate communications, because storytelling is pretty much universal and it's needed at this point. We see that the industry is demanding it and wanting more, editors who understand both business and tech and can make the sense out of it. The digital transformation, as we spoke about in the beginning, it is accelerating. And I think at this time, we don't have enough talent who can actually make sense of what is happening and who will be explaining the trends and the developments of the new economy in the future. This is why this is something which is coming up, so stay tuned. We will be hopefully educating more and more students on the topic.
That's an excellent news, and I can imagine that this won't be just media storytelling, content, marketing, let's say, specialty, but it will be a cross-disciplinary training so that people also touch a little bit into the technology trends and so that they are professionally able to interpret them in a convincing way, for sure.
Of course, it is combined. We are in touch with one of the most innovative founders here in the region. This is the one thing, and the second thing is that you grow a network, which is amazing. This is one of the good things about media. As I said, it is also an intermediary between different stakeholders, and it gives you a glimpse in so many industries and so many businesses. Yeah.
Super, super. We'll follow with interest to how this will and when this will be available. I want to ask you one final question that we ask all our guests, and it is how you hack yourself. How you restart the system. Yeah.
First, I must admit it's a never-ending process. It's an ongoing process. I face more and more, challenges of my personality. Once that I thought, okay, I managed this one, then the next one is actually coming. So I think, the different stages, I need like different hacks. Maybe I can say what is current at this point. I try to pay more attention to my breathing. I realized that I'm not breathing enough and that I'm not breathing deep enough. So in a way, now I try to meditate every, I don't know, at least every second day. I try to observe myself. Am I doing it during work, when I walk on the street? So one thing is breathing. And the second thing is, how should I put it? So this is also, again, very personal. I tend to be a very judgmental person. And whenever I start to judge someone too harsh on, things that they're not doing right, this is usually a signal for me that I'm judging myself also too harsh. So in a way that I want to hack it so that, I'm not as critical as sometimes I am with people. I try to find certain empathy for me, and then automatically usually comes for the others. So I think, practicing a bit more empathy with myself is a second hack that I'm currently working on.
We also have a big sympathy about yourself. Just when you feel insecure, you can open also this container and take a little bit of energy from it, because it is not necessarily the easiest thing you to mobilize this self-respect, the love to yourself. It takes a little bit of time until people start getting energy from there. So with this small present at the end, I want to really thank you for this 1 hour. It was very interesting conversation. Thank you for being very open, for sharing also things that not necessarily people share when they are on the stage in front of a big audience. Although we have a big audience here, but for sure this is the community, a safe space where women meet up, and I trust our conversation will stimulate other women to make bigger step, and also to maybe look professionally into area where you are a master already. Okay. Irina, thank you very much. We'll have soon an occasion to meet, hopefully personally. And
I heard something of Thursday. Let's see. I hope I can manage.
yeah. Okay.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Good evening to you. Good evening for everybody who has been with us. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me be part of it. And, from what you said, that I think I also felt a bit more comfortable being here in a community that, shares certain values, so that I can also speak certain stuff that I would not usually tell on the stage. Thank you. So wish you all a great evening. It's beer o'clock. Go enjoy yourselves. It's a wonderful weather outside. I'm planning to do the same.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye, Irina.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.